everyone. I'm here today with Scott Jenkins. How are you?
Hey, Em, it's great to see you. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Recovering well after the first two races and looking forward to the next one in 3 weeks' time, just under 3 weeks' time, maybe like 14 days, something like that. So, but yeah,
Oh,
very excited.
amazing. So, everybody kind of already knows your background in running. So I thought I'd start with kind of more interesting and deeper questions now.
Cool.
So can you tell me about the three main races, the three challenges and, the two you've already done and the one you've got to do, and kind of what drew you to such immense challenges?
Oh, thanks. It's very kind. Yeah, and thanks for asking the question too. I've recently returned from the States. I've been attempting to run the Triple Crown of 200 milers this summer. So my aim is to try and be the first Briton to do it. So far so good. The first two races went really well. So the first race was the Tahoe 200 on the 21st of July. Back in California. So that was a really hot race. It was like 35 degrees, hot by our standards, of course. Yeah, super technical course. Like you're up on the Tahoe Rim Trail, going over some really big climbs up at like 10,000 feet, a lot of exposure to the sun. And then, yeah, went really well, finished 19th in that. So I was quite pleased with that because I knew I had a bigger race coming up straight after. And unusually this year, there was a kind of unique challenge for the Triple Crown in that the first race was meant to be on the 16th of June, but they had to postpone it. And this still blows my mind because they had 58 foot of snow during the winter. So they literally, it's mad. Like they literally had to dig the trail out. It was just crazy. So they moved it to July, which created like just a really tough turnaround between Tahoe 200 and Bigfoot 200. For those of you that kind of aren't familiar with Bigfoot, it's a savage mountain race. It's 47,000 feet of elevation incline and decline, and it all takes place on the Cascade Mountains, which is a really remote mountain range in kind of South Washington State in the Pacific Northwest. Starts by Mount St. Helens. The first 30 miles of that race is just all sun exposure. The first time I ran it was actually 40 degrees on that section. The second time it was mid 30s, and this year again it was mid 30s. So pretty hot and harsh way to start such a mountain race. And then from there, after about 30 miles, you just go into the backwood mountains, middle of nowhere. There's trails not even there. I mean, like a lot of the time we talk about big climbs for like 18-mile sections with like 7,000 feet of elevation gain. And it's not like on trail. It's all like, oh, there's a bush hitting me in the face. Oh, I've got to climb over that tree. And also you're in an area where you're no longer top of the food chain. Like at Tahoe, on the third day of Tahoe, I saw a bear with two bear cubs, like terrifying. At Moab, I've seen mountain lions, and yeah, they're just really remote, rugged races. And I think the thing that there's a couple of reasons why I get drawn to it is I think you're not just testing yourself running wise, you're testing your mental capacity as well. Also trying to acclimatize to difficult conditions. It's really hard to like travel and do races like that. And then also like the distance itself. I like the mixture of, it's running, but also the mental side, the nutrition, the sleep, the hydration, all of those things. So it's been an exciting summer so far. So like I say, 2 down, 1 to go, Moab 240 on the 13th of October. So I'm very excited.
Amazing. With the amount of mileage you're doing, because these are all 200-mile races, what sort of strategy do you have going into the race? Because they're all different and they're in different areas, of America. Do you have one standard strategy, or are you do you have to wing it a little bit to kind of know what you're going to be doing?
What's the old Mike Tyson quote about like everyone has a plan till they get punched in the face? I think that's classic of my approach to ultra running. I've got a plan. Yeah, obviously I'm coached by Jeff Brown, and I'm sure people know who he is. He's a great runner and a great coach, and has taught me so much about running over the last few years. At Tahoe, my plan was at first like just survive the first day because I knew it was going to be really hot. 35 degrees, like I say, you're climbing over two really high mountain passes on the first day of that race over Armstrong Pass, which just over 10,000 feet. And you can imagine above the tree line, like no shade, no nothing. It's all right if you live in California, it's still hard, but like, you know, being from Wales, being from the UK, it isn't, you know, necessarily our cup of tea weather-wise. So I had to just kind of dial it back a little bit in the first day of Tahoe. Went really well. Was pleased with how it was going. And then in the afternoon, just got really hot, had to slow right down, got to the aid station where the first turnaround point was, which was about 35 miles in. And I thought, actually, I'm just going to spend a little time here, just hydrating and playing what's in front of me conditions wise. And I'm glad I did, because on the first day of that race, they lost a lot of runners out of the race, which is a real shame. And some of those guys were doing the Triple Crown, and I felt for them because it's tough cut-offs and, you know, very difficult running conditions. But I think, yeah, I tried to go into that race with a plan. It went, you know, pretty much according to plan up until mile 206. 206 was meant to be the finish. Whatever reason, not from my navigational errors, I may add, we ended up doing 217 miles. So lost a couple of stops in the last like 3 or 4 miles there, because my sleep strategy had been built around 206, and then we ended up running 217. But honestly, like if somebody had said to me before the race, you know, you can finish 19th for the first race of the Triple Crown, I was delighted with that, especially knowing that I'd been sensible in my approach to the race. So yeah, I was really pleased with that. And then my strategy in between was just to try and recover as much as possible. You know, my boss was very generous and let me work for the States for a week. And I work for Johnson & Johnson. They're very supportive of what I'm doing, because I'm trying to raise money for Operation Smile, the charity I support, at the same time. And then, yeah, Bigfoot was just a case of, I'm just going to do my best to survive this race. I knew it was going to be really difficult. I've been out there and run that course twice, and it's super technical, as I said earlier. And it was just a case of, weirdly, you're racing against the people that are in that race, but also you're aware that other people are doing the Triple Crown. You know, there's that kind of underbelly of competitiveness around the Triple Crown as well. So for me, it was just kind of like survive the first 2 days, see where we're at, and then go from there. And unfortunately, I had a good third day, a good third night, and then coming into the last day, I was able to do pretty well, actually, until ironically I came out of the woods onto the road section, and it was 42 degrees Celsius, which was
Wow.
just ridiculous. It's a half marathon to finish on the road, and it literally just dumps you from the trail onto the road, half marathon back to town. And it was so hot. Like, we at one point, my pacer was like trying to flag down a car to see if we could get some water. Like, it was tough. But yeah, really pleased with that. Ended up finishing 35th, which again I was quite pleased with, because it meant that I didn't know it at the time, but I ended up moving up into 5th place overall in the Triple Crown, which is awesome. So I'm 15 minutes behind 4th place, I think. So I'm looking forward to getting it on now in Moab. It's going to be fun.
Wow. So what sort of times then did you get for both?
So for the first race, it was 80 hours and I think like 51 minutes. And for the second race, it was 80 hours again. But I can't remember what that
Then
was.
you're consistent then, aren't you?
I'm consistent. Yeah, I guess it's really interesting, because like the second race was harder and had more elevation. Yeah, I'm not really sure. But the other thing was interesting about it was that in this year, when I ran Bigfoot, I ran it 2 hours quicker than I did last year. But obviously last year I didn't have the nightmare scenario of running Tahoe beforehand as well. So I actually ran it quicker, but finished in 35th, and last year I finished in 25th. So I don't know what to do.
Well, that leads really well into my next question, though, because you know, like you've raced against some really amazing athletes out there over, you know, the 2 races. Did it feel a bit unnerving, kind of turning up to these races, and you know you've got some of the best in the world there?
Yeah, I guess it is a little bit, right? You know, especially in the States, they like to hype things up and stuff. And I think the really nice thing is there's so many great runners out there, but no matter their backgrounds, whether they're elite or amateurs, like me, like we just, I think everyone's the same kind of approach to things, right? You know that you're going into a real adventure, and it's not just you versus the other runners. I think it's you versus yourself, and I think it's you versus the elements for probably, right up until the last day, I would say. And then you're like, oh, where am I in that race? Like, I wonder if I can just move up a couple of spots. And I spent some time chatting and running with Sally McRae out there. She was so lovely, like, super elite athlete. And yeah, like you say, just so many people are so friendly. And yeah, I just had a great experience out there on the trails. And I just, yeah, very excited and feel very fortunate that I get to go and have these opportunities, I suppose.
Amazing. So what sort of mindset do you think is required to take on the Triple Crown?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I think slightly optimistic, resilient. I think I think with ultra running, like you get to these races, like these big races, like 100, 250, whatever it is, and it is like a microcosm of life in a way, because there's going to be massive ups and downs, but if you keep moving forward and you keep a positive mindset, for the most part, you can get to where you want to be, which is a lot like life, and a lot like when you're doing a difficult task in work, whether that be trying to win a sales account or like I say, trying to finish a 200 miler. I think the thing for me around mindset is just trying to keep things well balanced so that you keep it on an even keel. I think with the 200s, it's easy to like get carried away. Like, you might be 20, 30 miles in and you're feeling great. And then you think, oh, I'm still going to be out here in like 3 days time running, and I'll probably have slept for 2 hours at that point. You're like, better dial it back. Or by the same token, like the last time I ran Moab at Bigfoot this year too, on the first day, my body was just battered and I was being sick for the first day. And it's easy to get overwhelmed and despondent. But again, when you hit those dark points, the mindset is so crucial to keeping moving forward. And quite often for me, it can be the reasons why I'm doing these races, which is, supporting Operation Smile as a charity I've supported for the last 8 years. And they do wonderful work doing surgical intervention for children and cleft lips and cleft palates all around the world. So that really digs me out of dark places quite often. But also it can be something super basic, like, I wonder if they'll have a burger at that aid station, or like one great example, like at Bigfoot, I came into an aid station and a guy that I'd seen at the Cocodona 250 last year, he actually paced me one of the last sections of Cocodona last year. He, unbeknownst to me, was volunteering at this aid station in the middle of nowhere, and he saw me and he came over. He's like, dude, I got you a cold beer. And just in the middle of nowhere, it's well over 30 degrees. I sat at this aid station living it up with a cold beer. So I think the mindset is a massive piece of it, and it's just finding those little nuggets to keep moving you forward, I guess.
How do you handle sleep deprivation then? How much are you actually sleeping while you're out there?
That's a really good question as well. And I think it's something that I'm still trying to master. I haven't quite found the sweet spot. I think for me, it's around 40 minutes to an hour a night, or roughly 70, 80 miles. If I do that, I think that gives me enough not to start hallucinating and slow down. Because that's the thing with the sleep. It's a massive part. I'm sure you know this. Like it's a massive part of the 200-mile distance that's not there in a 100-miler. It's not there in any other distance, really. And I think that if you can figure out what works for you in these races, then it can help you to perform better. I think when I started running 200s, my approach was, I'll just keep going till I, keel over and pass out on the side of the trail. But actually, more latterly, working with Jeff, we're coming towards a conclusion that it's actually better to bank the sleep earlier on. And that requires a different skill set in terms of like, well, I'm running well, I don't feel particularly tired, but actually maybe if I take this extra sleep now, it's going to just keep those batteries more steadily charged so that when you hit the last day, you see the people like I would have done in the past, gone out hard, and then all of a sudden you're in the zombie walking of the dead phase on the last day, when actually if you've kept it more level again, then you've got a chance to run a bit stronger in those last miles, which I think is probably going to be my approach for Moab.
Amazing. So what are some of your favorite kit pieces and nutrition whilst you're out there?
Nutrition that I can carry with me, or
nutrition that you've got on you. Do you take gels or normal food more?
I think it's a mixture. So like it depends what I'm in the mood for. I definitely like GU gels. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but I really like the vanilla and salted caramel gels. They tend to go down quite well. Again, nutrition is a weird thing in a 200-mile race, because what you think that you will want, and I guess that's a lot like most ultras. You start off with an idea of, I'm going to eat cheese, I'm going to eat all these crisps, and then one key thing that I found in racing in these warmer races is that your appetite fades pretty quickly, and it can be very difficult to keep your mouth salivated enough to be able to chew food. So I always do this. I always think, yeah, I'm going to take a bag of Pringles with me, crush them up, put them in a Ziploc, and without fail, I end up getting, pretty dry in the mouth and can't eat these bloody crisps, so end up resorting to gels. I love Tailwind. I think, Tailwind for calories is good. Trying to put more calories into the Tailwind currently. Interestingly, I've started dabbling with a supplement from the States called Vespa. Definitely have a little look at it. They don't really sell it over here, but I managed to get hold of some. One of my friends was coming over. It's it's a wasp peptide, which I think basically is like a wasp venom. And what it does is that it kind of directs your body to want to use fat as a calorie source, rather than just chewing down a load of carbohydrates. So I've tried it in a few training runs so far, and actually been quite surprised. Like last Saturday, I went for a training run, nothing big, like just 10 miles on trail, 1,000 feet of elevation, nothing crazy. And I went without eating. I just had this Vespa and I felt really good. So yeah, definitely something for people to maybe check out. I've been really impressed with that so far. And then I do like some aid station food, some burgers, pizza, and the beer, as I mentioned. Only one or two though.
Only one or two. Otherwise you'll be stumbling up all of the hills.
Well, I'm mostly stumbling anyway at the end of these ultras, so there's no difference.
So kit wise, what sort of stuff are you wearing shoe wise?
So I'm sponsored by Ultra, which is awesome. Love Ultra shoes. Been running, all of my 200s actually have been in Ultra shoes. So I wear the Mont Blancs, which are great shoes. I think they're super lightweight. The really nice thing about the Mont Blancs is they've got that Vibram foot plate or Vibram sole on it, which is cool. And it just helps protect your feet on the rocky terrain. I've previously in the past, I love the Lone Peak as well. I run Cocodona in the Lone Peak. I've run Moab before in the Lone Peak, but that Vibram sole is really good. The Mont Blanc being lightweight and quite airy, I prefer to the Olympus, which is a little bit heavier, I think, in my opinion. And also I noticed that the Mont Blanc at Bigfoot, Tahoe, you're crossing like quite, certainly Bigfoot rivers, like, raging rivers too. And the feet get absolutely soaked, and without fail, the Mont Blancs like dry out so quickly, which is really, really helpful in a race like that. You don't want to get trench foot. So yeah, they're really cool. I know they're bringing out a new one soon, which is meant to be awesome. May have some carbon in it too, which will be exciting. I use Lecky poles, the ultra super light ones. I've got the bright pink ones, which I absolutely love. Garmin Phoenix Solar 6X, which I think is a great watch in a 200-mile race. Only need to charge it once, and that's with everything on, heart rate, nav, everything, which is good. I wear an Ultra Aspire Zygos 5.0 running pack, which I really, really like. Those guys are great actually. So I got a bit of damage on my first pack out in Tahoe, and I rang the company and they immediately sent me a new one, which was super cool of them. I just think it's a really well designed pack, and the owner of that company, I'm not sponsored by him at all, like, is a guy called Bryce Thatcher, been in ultra running for a very long time, and it's just a really well thought out pack in its design, really well made. So yeah, what other kit? I've got a really funky bright pink Melon cap, which I acquired in the States, which matches my poles quite nice.
Wouldn't
Get
lose you anywhere, would you, with all your neon pink on?
I think it's to scare the bears off, basically. Yeah, like I say, at Tahoe, we on the third day of the race are coming up the trail, and I was running with my pacer, and he was like, "Dude, stop!" And I'm like, "Why?" Like, and he's like, "Up the trail, there's some bear cubs up there," and I'm like, "What?" And they're like 10 meters away, and he's like, "Yeah, man, don't move. There's going to be a mama." And like, we look over to the left. And I've got a photo of it because I made him take a photo. I'm like, take a photo. Basically, this mother bear just stood up on all fours, and it was literally like the size of a car. And I'm like, what do we do? And he said, "Dude, just don't move, don't move." And the cubs ran across to the mum, and it just took off into the bushes. But it was one of those moments where you're like, that was 10 seconds, but it felt like 10 hours. It was pretty scary, right? You know, we're not used to that kind of thing. I'm sure Californians see it all the time, but when you see a bear the size of a Nissan Micra just following you, it certainly made the night section that night just that little bit more scary, because you're like, oh yeah, you know, what's that noise in the bush? So yeah, quite the experience.
Makes you run a little bit faster.
I'd like to think it did. It probably didn't, but I'd like to think it did.
So what do you think are some of your weaknesses that may have kind of arisen as you've been doing this challenge?
These are some great questions. I think that's a really good question. And I think that's something that I constantly think about, is like, you know, I was happy with my performance at Tahoe, like, but there's still room for improvement, and it's because I've got weaknesses that I need to address. I think one of the biggest weaknesses that I have, and I'm still trying to figure out the answer to it with Jeff, is that on the first day of ultras, especially the 200 milers, I have a habit of throwing up a lot, and we're kind of working through the solutions for that, and it's not down to nerves or the distance or the course. I think, and we're still trying to, as I say, figure out the answer, but actually it's down to my drink rate. So I'm a very heavy sweater. Been doing some drink rate testing recently. So per liter of sweat, I sweat about 1,300 milligrams of sodium per liter of sweat. So in a hot race, you know, coming from the UK to the States, you know, I could lose up to 2 liters in an hour, which is just crazy. So we think that that's probably contributing to the throwing up quite a bit. Other things that could cause that, you know, salt caps. So I take salt caps, which are great, but I tend to, you know, throw 4 in when I kind of remember, which I'm sure a lot of ultra runners do. You get tired, you start chucking stuff in, but actually salt will make you sick. So if you're taking 4 capsules at the same time, they've got to digest in your stomach, which has got no hydration in to help you digest. Then all of a sudden, you know, you're going to start throwing up again. So it's those little things, the room margin for error. I think I can improve my all day pace still. I often wonder what it would be like to live in the mountains in like Colorado or even Lake District, Highlands, back home in Wales as well, just to see what that impact would have. Because, you know, I live in London and I'm racing against people that live in Colorado at like 10,000 feet. But I just have to get creative. So there's lots of weaknesses, you know, foot care. I think when you get more tired as well, like, it's easy to make mistakes. It's easy to forget something at the aid station or forget and stop eating and all those things. So yeah, still figuring it out. I think that's the exciting part of ultra running, isn't it? You think you've got it done and you're like, no, there's a lot more things you can learn.
Definitely. I remember when I lived in London, I'd just on my lunch breaks, I'd always go out for a run, and I remember everybody always being like, "What is she doing?" and and I used to run to I was in Camden Town, and I used to run to Primrose Hill and run up and down Primrose Hill like 3 times and then run back, and everybody's like, "Why are you doing this?"
It's so true. I do the same thing in Richmond Park. So like I figured out a route in Richmond Park, which is about 8 miles, and I can get 1,000 foot of elevation in an hour, but it involves like multiple out and back on hills. It's just it's a bit boring, but yeah, that's where I am in life, and you know, it's absolutely fine. I enjoy it. I'm very lucky to have, you know, the support from the business, and it gives me the opportunity to go and do it. So that's the trade-off, right?
Definitely. So, you were the first Welshman to complete the 2 events. So how does it make you feel to represent your country kind of in somewhere like America?
Well, half of them don't know where it is, do they?
True, true.
It's because Ireland and Scotland get all, and England get all the glory, and then you
Yeah,
know, like, oh, what's in Wales, man? Well, castles. There's a lot more castles in Wales than any other country in the UK. There you go.
yeah,
Fact of the day. It makes me, yeah, it makes me very proud. I guess, you know, from a small town, and you know, I guess you do feel like, even coming from the UK to a country where there's like 500 million people. I'm very proud to be Welsh, but I'm very proud to be British as well. And you know, it would mean a lot to me to be the first Briton to do the Triple Crown, and Welsh person at the same time. And I guess all I've ever really wanted to do is, you know, try and make people proud, and do some good in the world. And my philosophy has always been like, I just want to have an adventure. When I get old in life, I want to look back and say, I had an adventure, but I did some good at the same time. And, you know, through running, I've been able to have that adventure, and also do some fundraising to try and help others as well. So hopefully one day I can look back on that with a bit of pride, maybe. We'll see.
Last question. So running in other countries like America is very different to running here in the UK. You've obviously mentioned the wildlife. I think the most we ever see is deer and hedgehogs. The weather. So what advice would you give to, you know, other ultra runners who are hoping to stretch out of the UK and maybe do races in America especially?
My number one advice at the moment is the bloody accommodation is so expensive. It cost me a fortune to go and run five weeks out there, but it was worth every penny for the experience. And I guess my advice would be just to go and do it. Like, we only live once, we only get one opportunity to go and have these adventures in life. And there's so many epic races all around the world. I've just been fortunate to run quite a bit in the States, but I love running in the UK as well. And I think adventure is always on our doorstep. We just got to take the time to go and look for it. But certainly, if you go to the States to run, what you'll find is a very similar running community to the UK. Very passionate, very caring people that just want to help other runners out, really. And I think the nice thing about the States is that it's a very diverse country, just due to the size of it in terms of the scenery. So, you know, 1 minute at Tahoe, you could be running around a beautiful lake on the floor, and the next minute you're climbing a 10,000-foot mountain pass. And it's the same thing with Moab. Like, 1 minute you're running in a 30-degree desert canyon, and then the next night you're running in 10,000-foot mountains, and it's -5 degrees Celsius. And we don't have that kind of terrain. So I feel like by doing it, it takes you out of your comfort zone. And we all know by going outside of your comfort zone is where we learn and develop the most. So I would just say, give it a go.
Brilliant. So where can people find you? What charity? Where can people find that? Websites, all that jazz. Where can people find you?
Probably find me on the side of the trail, keeled over, sleeping, eating a beer, or eating a beer, eating a pizza and drinking a beer even. No, you can find me on Instagram. It's at Scott J Jenkins, and on there you can find a link to my fundraising page for Operation Smile. So appreciate it's a tough time at the moment, but if anyone wants to check that out, I'd be very grateful. And it's a wonderful charity. They, for £150 you can literally change someone's life forever. So please do check that out if you get a chance. And yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It's been great.
Thank you very much. Wish you luck for Moab. I'll definitely be dot watching you whilst you're out there, so you'll be good. I have a good feeling.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. And also, I want to say good luck to you for your race on the weekend. I know you're going to smash it.
Thank you. It's not nearly as far as what you'll be doing, but maybe one day I'll be doing a 200 miler. Thank you.